Well, let me move on to lesson 13. It's going to talk about pronominal suffixes on a couple prepositions, preposition la and preposition ka. And it's also going to introduce a couple of particles, yesh and ain, and also talk about the perfect tense of words of roots that end in aleph, and introduce the relative pronoun asher. First of all, pronominal suffixes. In addition to the independent personal pronouns that we've already introduced, Hebrew will also attach pronouns directly to words, though it will be in a form that's rather different than the form that you would see in the independent personal pronouns. So this is the way that it works. With preposition la, which means to or for, if you attach an o to the la and make it lo, that means to him or to it. By the way, that should not be confused with lo with an aleph, which would mean not. And then you have lah with an aspirated hey at the end. That would be to her. The mapik in the hey indicates that it is pronounced as a consonant. And then to you is laka. That's to you masculine singular. Second masculine singular form. And then to you second feminine singular is lach. And then to me, first common singular, is li. And then to them is lahem. That would be to them masculine plural. By the way, you might have asked the question somewhere along the way, well, what if you have a mixture of men and women? Where you have a mixture of men and women, it'll generally use the masculine form. But if you have all women, you'd use the feminine form. And so to them women would be lahem. To you guys is lakem. To you ladies would be laken with the final noon. And then to us would be lanu. Now, a little bit on how to remember these endings. With the third person singular ending, it's an O. I don't have a whole lot to say about that. The third feminine singular ending is a kamatz hey, lah, with a mapik indicating that it is actually pronounced as a letter and not just a vowel letter. And you're kind of used to kamatz hey being feminine, so that should be helpful a little bit. As far as the second persons go, notice that all the second persons have a kaf in them. Ka, kem, and ken. So you have ka and k. I don't have a vowel there, so I just got to make kind of a K sound. And then kem and ken. And I'll throw out a mnemonic, but it's a little risque, so please bear with me and try not to be offended. When I look at the kaf with a kamatz in it, versus the kaf with a shava in it, I think of babies. And this baby has a little boy part, and this baby has a little girl part. So laka, that would be to you, baby boy, and lach would be to you, baby girl. At least that's how I tried to remember it. And then with the others, lakem and laken, Well, I think of M, or the mem. M is for men. So if it's men, if it's masculine plural, then it'll have an M. And if it's the noon, well, that would be the opposite, the women. Think of nashim, the word for women in Hebrew. So anyway, if it has a kaf as a pronominal suffix, then it's going to be second person all the way through. Now, as far as the first common singular, the E, well, that's a little bit like the independent personal pronoun ani, and like the E at the end of the perfect, as in pakadti, has an E at the end of the first common singular form. And then the nu of the la nu, again, you have the pakadnu in the paradigm of the perfect with a nu ending, and a naknu, us, or we as a independent personal pronoun, also has that nu. So there is some interrelationship, though not as much as one would like. On the third person masculine plural, again, if it doesn't have a kaf, then it's not second person. And if it has an M, well, M is for men, and that would be masculine plural. And if it's noon, well, that's for nashim, that's women, that'd be feminine plural. And so if you can remember, M is for men, so if it's lahem, well, it can't be second person, it has to be plural, and third person masculine plural is the form. Well, anyway, you're going to need to learn to recognize these different forms. And with preposition la, you get those endings. With preposition ba, you get identically the same endings. Except sometimes you get a shortened form. So instead of getting bahem, you'll often get bam, where the ahem has contracted into bam, and the bahen may contract into ban, but it's still M is for men and noon is for nashim, women, and so that might still help you there. As far as the syntax of this sort of thing, the preposition la with pronominal suffixes often expresses indirect object in sentences. So here he gives you the example, Natan lo et hasefer. He gave to him, direct object marker, the book. He gave to him the book. He gave him the book. So that's an introduction to pronominal suffixes. We're going to say a lot more about them as time goes along, but that's at least a beginning. Now we move on to particles of existence and non-existence, yesh and ein. Yesh indicates that something exists, either yesh or sometimes yesh with a makef. Ein indicates that something does not exist, and the absolute form would be ayin, not to be confused with ayin meaning I, that has an ayin. This is where not pronouncing your ayin makes a difference. But anyway, that states that something does not exist. So if you say yesh bayit, that means a house exists. If you say ein ish, that means there is no man. And so for practical purposes, you can translate yesh as there is or there are. And ein, you can, for practical purposes, translate there is not or there are not. Although there is no tense to it, so it could be past, present, or future. You get an example of this formulation in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 5. Ave Adam ayin la'avod et ha'adamah. And the man was not to till, direct object marker, the ground. There was no man. Normally it would be ein adam, but it chose to do a different word order, and it gave you the more absolute form of ayin. But it means a man did not exist to till, to work the ground. Hebrew also uses these forms with preposition la to express possession. So if you say yesh li isha, that means there is to me a wife. I have a wife. You don't generally use a separate word, a verb, have, but you'll use this formulation. There exists to me a wife. I have a wife. Or ein lo bayit. There is not to him a house. He has no house. Or yesh lamelech giborim. There is to the king warriors. The king has warriors. So if you have a homework exercise that asks you to say someone has something, you'll have to reword that to there is to that person whatever it is that they have. That's the formulation, using yesh for saying that they positively do have something, and ein by saying that they do not have it. You do not negate a yesh, rather you use this form ein. Well, I move on to the perfect of third aleph verbs. The paradigm of the third aleph cal perfect is very similar to the strong verb, like pakad or katav that we've talked about earlier. But the third guttural, this aleph, does create certain problems. So the main thing that it does, it changes the vowel. Normally the form of the perfect is kamatz under the first consonant and patah under the second consonant. But you'll see in the third masculine singular that the aleph causes, since it's an open syllable apparently, it causes the vowel to be a long vowel, a long A rather than a short A. That shows up also in the second masculine singular. Matzah means he found. The third feminine singular is just like the paradigm, matzah, but then the other forms, matzata, kamatz is there rather than patah, matzat, you get a kamatz there rather than a patah for the second feminine singular, and then matzati, you get the kamatz. So basically you're getting a kamatz rather than a patah. This shouldn't be too hard to recognize, but that's what it is. We then move on to the relative pronoun asher. The pronoun asher most frequently introduces relative clauses. Relative clauses modify a noun or the like. And so here you have a sentence, Hanavi asher ba hekal. Hanavi, the prophet, asher, basically you'll translate asher either who, which, or that. So the prophet who, ba is in the, notice the patah indicating the article is there, the palace, hekal, or it could be temple. Palace or temple is both hekal. In Hebrew, the relative pronoun is not required with attributive adjectives. So you can say the king, the upright one, meaning the king who is upright. So you don't always use asher. You can use other forms to express a similar idea. Well, we'll finish this in the next video.